Ralph is the Senior Vice President of Eddie Casey Foundation. He serves as the Managing Director for the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. This is a national effort to increase rates of third grade reading proficiency, especially for children from low-income families. From 1975 to 1997, he sat on the faculty of the Law School of the University of Pennsylvania, teaching corporate law, security regulations, education law, and policy. Smart guy. He served on the boards of Leapfrog Enterprises Incorporated from 2005 to 2009, and the Noble Learning Communities Incorporated from 2007 to 2011. Most importantly, he has served on the boards of Venture Philanthropy Partners and the Center for Responsible Lending. Ralph has also a number of senior leadership positions from the School District of Philadelphia. So he's got experience working in schools, including the Chief of Staff, Senior Consultant, Special Counsel. He received his undergraduate degree from Loyola University in Los Angeles, a JD from the University of California, and served as a teaching fellow at Harvard University. So without further ado, with great honor and respect,
Good evening. Good evening. I'm delighted to be here, and I must admit a little intimidating. I've spent the day running around doing exactly what Joanna has asked me to do, and I've met an amazing number of people who do these great things. I've had the chance to talk to folks who are absolutely committed. Michael, I am delighted to be here to support this work. And let me see if I can tell you why. And why am I here in an area that's got award-winning superintendents, the area with the sort of the rich history of North Carolina and the incredible achievements of Charlotte and Charlotte-Mecklenburg. I'm here because it feels to me as if this community has made a decision that good isn't good enough, and that collectively this community can move to another domain. And why that? Well, as you heard, my checkered career takes me from securities regulations to this point. And as I made the transition, there was a question which haunted me. And the question is this: how could we know as much as we do, spend as much as we do, care as much as we say we do, and accomplish so little for so many kids over so long a period of time as permanently to compromise their ability to grow up, to be productive adults in the economy, to be effective parents, and to be great citizens? And the answer to that question was even more troubling than the question itself. The answer was, first of all, we don't know as much as we think we do, and we often lack the personal courage and political will to act on what we do know. We don't spend as much as we need to, but until we do better with what we have, it's going to be hard to make the case for what we need. And we don't care as much as we say we do, because some kids matter more than others, and some kids matter not at all. That, in many respects, is the question that has driven and fueled my career for the last 2 decades. And it brought me to a point in the Annie E. Casey Foundation where focusing on those kids who matter less than others and who may matter not at all to a lot of folks, we asked what we could do to disrupt intergenerational poverty. And as we honed in on that question, it became clear that there were three answers. There's a three-part answer. And the social scientists agree. And you know, if social scientists agree on anything, especially if they could get it down to 3 points, and then they could say there's a 90% chance of certainty that this will work, you know, you take notes, because that's such a rare occasion. And three things. Number one, a kid has to graduate from high school. Number two, the kid has to get and keep a job. Number three, they've got to delay pregnancy, childbirth, and parenting until they're 25 years or older, or married in a committed relationship. Now, when you go to number three, you can imagine the controversy, because that sets up a whole conversation about culture. And when you go to number two, there are people who say, look, adults can't get a job in this economy, so why is that a requirement for young people? But the interesting thing is, for kids from the lowest income families, we don't get to number two and number three, because number one, graduate from high school, is the big hurdle. Because most of the kids from the lowest income families are not graduating from high school. And when we see the number that says low income, you've got to say, how low is that income? And we usually talk about 200% of poverty level to inflate the figures, because if we go to poverty level, those kids are just not graduating from high school. That's the dirty little secret that makes things even worse than they appear to be. So that's what we wanted to take on. And so when you scour the research and you look for the inflection point, we found that the inflection point was grade level reading by the end of third grade. The kids who read on grade level by the end of third grade tended to graduate from high school, including low-income kids. Kids who didn't read on grade level by the end of third grade trended toward not graduating from high school, especially low-income kids. So we said, okay, this is where we invest. And we realized that this was not an investment we could make alone. This was not an area where you needed to develop a whole lot of new knowledge. So we said, we need to essentially make this a campaign and invite a whole lot of folks to join this effort. And we're delighted that the Belk Foundation, we're delighted that United Way, we're delighted that YUSA, we are delighted at what's happened in terms of people joining this campaign. And when we started out, we said we'll probably work in 24 school districts and communities in 12 states. Today, I gotta tell you, there are 142 communities around the country in 37 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We are overwhelmed by the response and a little bit awestruck by the response. Now, when we write this up, we will probably say that it was a brilliant plan that was flawlessly executed. And you could look for that report in the fiction section of the public library or the science fiction section of the book. You'll have to order that on Amazon, because that will be nothing close to the truth. We think some things happened. We think there were tactics and timing that accounted for that. And as you think about what's happening here in North Carolina, as you think about what's happening here in Charlotte, you have a sense as to some of that. Well, for one thing, we tilted our message very early. We were really focused on third grade reading, and what we realized is that a lot of people saw third grade reading and couldn't get it because they were into high school graduation. So we said, if you're interested in high school graduation, you better get interested in third grade reading because those kids aren't going to graduate, they can't read in grade level. And some people came on board. And then there were people who said, well, third grade is too late. And we say, we agree that third grade is too late. If you're going to get kids to read in third grade, you've got to start at birth. They're not going to suddenly begin reading on third grade level. And there's some people who said, well, what are we going to do about the division between the early childhood people and the K-12 people? We said, remind the early childhood people that if their kids don't read by third grade, nobody's going to want to pay for early childhood. And remind the K-12 people that if the kids don't read on third grade, nobody's going to want to pay for them. So that they've got common cause in working across the spectrum. And what we did is we tried to build this thing out so we could say there are three things. Three, we call them assurances. There's no magic formula here. There's no one. There are three things we're going to have to do if we're going to get to third grade reading. One, we're going to have to assure quality teaching for every child in every setting, every day. Quality teaching for every child in every setting, every day. Notice that what we did is we took this impulse to put it on the schools that talk about quality teachers. And we said it's quality teaching, not just quality teachers. Quality teaching, which means all adults, for every child in every setting, every day. That's at home, in the child care center, in the early childhood program, as well as in the classroom. We got to share that. It is an integrated and more seamless system of services of support, care, services, and family support. Because what we know right now is the way we serve families and kids is that the system has got so many gaps and cracks and crevices that kids and families just fall off and fall through. It's a wonder that anybody get the services and supports they need. And as we nod about that and we think about the divisions between health and human services on child welfare and education and the like, let's remember that that is also true for those of us in the nonprofit social services community. We are as prone to gaps and cracks and crevices. We work in isolation, and that's why we produce good outcomes, but absolutely no impact. And the way we get people to think about this is to remind folks that in 1988, neither the US women's team 4x100 relay team, nor the men's 4x100 relay team medaled at the Olympics, even though they had the fastest runners and ran the fastest time. You say, how is it possible? Well, every athlete in the room knew exactly how it is possible. They muffed the handoff. They dropped the baton, and therefore got disqualified because people were in a relay race. They don't ask how fast you ran the leg. They ask how fast you finished the race. Well, in many respects, the work we do is more like a relay than it is a sprint. And whether it's philanthropy or anybody else, we've spent a whole lot of time pushing outcomes and virtually no time focusing on the handoff. And that is one of the things that we realize we're going to have to change. And when we say seamless system, that's what we're talking about. And then we come to the third area. And the third area really requires us to start by affirming that we've got to continue to be persistent, consistent, insistent to the point of truculence, that schools must do better with the kids they have and not the kids they prefer to have. It's not as if the parents are keeping the good kids home and sending the others to school. The parents are sending schools the best kids they have, and in some cases the only kids they have, and in some cases all the kids they have. So schools can't keep saying, well, what's next? This is it, you got to do a better job. And usually when you say that, you have the educators in the room deciding, is this a time for the kung fu stance, or the fetal position because they're sure what's coming next. Not from me. I think we have got to stop beating up on teachers and schools and educators. We need a generation of folks who are a whole lot stronger, a whole lot better, a whole lot smarter than the rest of us. And if we keep beating up on them, we're making this a very unpopular profession. We have got to stop beating up on teachers and schools, not stop holding them accountable. And what we've got to do is to get out of the blame business, to get out of the finger-pointed business, to stop treating this work as if it's a spectator sport, and the rest of us could continue to blame and point fingers while we debate whether we're going to watch this game from the boxes or the bleachers. We have got to get out of the stands, past the sidelines, onto the field and into the game, and we've got to figure out how we're going to help schools. And once we take that position, we realize that there are a group of kids for whom schools will not succeed, even if you have good schools with quality classroom teachers. And that's a bit of heresy for all of us who've been working on school reform. We believe that if we get school reform, everything's solved. No. And we've got to own up to the fact that there are some kids who are not going to succeed even in good schools with quality classroom teaching. And here are three groups of kids. Group number one, the kids who start out so far behind that it's not likely they're going to catch up in 3 years. These kids are behind when they're 3. We have got to understand that's not a school responsibility, that's a community responsibility. To give Dr. Edwards kids who are close to being ready, and then hold them accountable for kids who are not even in the ballpark. Now, let me tell you, if you ever see a really good teacher with 3 of those nonverbal kids, and you watch that teacher do the work, that's as close to magic as you will ever get. But we're not willing to staff our schools 1 teacher for every 3 kids. So until we get there, we're going to have to do a better job of getting kids ready. 2, I don't know what the number is, and I should know, but I don't know what the number is of kids in this city, in this state, in this region, who miss more than 20 days of school a year. But you know what? This chronic absence problem is a tragedy. It is a catastrophe. It is an issue that's hidden in plain sight because we only worry about truancy and we worry about unexcused absences. Whether the kid is excused or not, whether the kid is skipping school or missing school because they're sick, if they're not in the classroom, it doesn't matter how much good teaching is going on. In Maryland, 7% of the kids miss more than 10% of the school year. In the city of Baltimore, it's 17% of the kids. In East Baltimore, it's 27%. 27% of the kids miss more than the school year. And then communities have the temerity to say to the superintendent, why aren't these kids reading? 3rd group of kids. And as you look at why read, we have got kids in every community around the country who need summer program. There are people in this room, if I ask you where your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, the kids you could talk about, you'd care about. If I ask you where they're going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 3rd Tuesday of July, you can go to your smartphone and you could probably tell me. In fact, I was on a panel recently and somebody did it. She says, I know. Right. Why? Can you tell me? Because we know that summer could be a time of opportunity or a time of risk. And for the kids we care most about, we make sure it's a time of opportunity. We program those kids. I got a couple of amens back there. There are more summer camps, piano lessons, play dates. We program those kids. It looks like a military operation. The kids we care about. Some of it is about our own survival, I admit. But we plan summer. We overplan summer if we talk to our kids. I would bet in this city, on the last day of school, you ask some parents what's going to happen to their kids the following Tuesday. They're not going to be able to tell you. And what we could bet is for that kid, this is a summer of risk. And it is likely that that kid is going to come back to school in September, farther behind than when they left in June. Those kids are the responsibility of the community, and that's why Y-Reader, that's why Bell, and that's why the great summer programs, that's why Freedom Schools are so essential to this work. So we said you've got to assure quality teaching for every kid. You've got to build more seamless systems of care services and support. And you've got to find community solutions for the readiness challenge, the attendance challenge, and the summer learning challenge. Let me just say that we've learned a bit. And if I tell you what we've learned, I can get them into a few bullets. And one, we've learned that you've got to focus on the early years and the early grades. You've got to focus on learning during the school hours and learning that happens outside of school. You've got to focus on children and on the adults in their lives. You've got to focus on program outcomes, and you've got to focus on handoff. You've got to focus on grade level reading and on STEM. You know, there was this book, There Are No Children Here. There Are No Children Here. It's about the trials and travails and triumphs of a family living in public housing in Chicago. That book was made into a television movie by Oprah Winfrey, who starred in it. And at the end of the movie, they interviewed real kids from that public housing development, and they asked about their future. And I remember this one 12-year-old child, and they said, what's your future like? And she paused, and she said, my future. And she paused again, and then she finally answered, I can't imagine a future. You know, we live in the richest nation in the history of the world, and we have kids that plan their funerals and can't imagine their futures. These are the kids who matter less than others and who may matter not at all. When a community commits to making sure that its kids read by the end of 3rd grade and therefore have a shot at graduating, have a shot at escaping poverty, have a shot at going on to college and to careers, military service, just a shot at that. That community makes a decision about its values, a decision about its character, and a decision about its future. And I am delighted to be here in Charlotte and be in a community that's making that decision. Thank you very much.